at the moment.
Yeah. Hello and welcome. We are live. I am joined today. Well, first off to say I'm in Moscow, which is pretty cool. And I've been over here with James Tusk for a few days. You might have seen already some of the content we've been putting out. It's been pretty cool so far. Really good trip. Charging around today. Very, very hot in the city. So I've kind of got heat stroke. So apologies if that is reflected at all in today's broadcast. But without further ado, I'm joined by a very special guest indeed. It is, I think it's fair to say, rising star in the black pill space, Mr. Wheat Waffles. How are you, sir?
Yeah, thank you very much for that introduction. Yeah, so as you say, I specialize in black pill content, which predominantly focuses on the looks aspect of attraction, and it believes that most of a man's dating success is determined by his looks.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that we sort of met, I guess, is because, well, you've picked up quite a lot of attention recently, haven't you, with your channel? Largely because you've done so. Part of what you do, I mean, you can talk more about it in a second, but part of what you do is you will sort of rate people. You'll look at people and you'll say, well, there's these aspects of his face, and I think based on these, he rates as a 5 or a 7 or a 9 or whatever it is. And you had rated a few sort of prominent people in the sort of red pill dating coach community, and that's got you some attention, hasn't it? Because you've really had a few people. You've had Alexander Grace, who you rated, and then he did a sort of response video, and then he brought you on for an interview. And Coach Red Pill has done about 3 videos on you now, hasn't he? It's like becoming a sort of, you're becoming his main piece of content at the moment.
And I think he wants me to be on his live stream tomorrow as well.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's good. And then obviously our friend James Tusk, who I'm friends with. So so James had you on his stream because you'd rated him, and you had a really good conversation with him. And then I said, off the back of that, oh, it would be great if I could have a chat with you as well. So obviously you've done very well in terms of growing your channel. You're getting a lot of attention on you at the moment, which is cool. But I think one of the other cool things, just from my point of view about you, is that you do seem willing to talk to people on our side of the equation, if you like. And I suppose one issue maybe I've had in the past with some of these black pill guys is that they are quite obviously focused in their views. They don't really want to have dialogue, and so that there hasn't been much sort of conversation between the two sides, if you like.
Yeah, I see what you mean. On that point, I actually think it's better if the black pill community people do actually talk to the other side, because then you're going to be able to expose yourself to different viewpoints and try to get to the bottom of this whole situation that we're facing right now. Yeah, exactly. And as I say, the purpose of today is not so much to really debate all of the issues again, because you've done that to some extent with Tusk and I guess Alexander Grace to a certain extent as well. I mean, I suppose broadly speaking, you've got people on the red pill sort of dating coach side of things who would say, well, there are behavioral things that you can do to improve your success in the dating arena. So if you become more confident, if you lift, all of these cliched things, chase excellence, and you will have a better chance with women than you might have done before. Whereas, yourself and other people on the black pill side would say, well, no, actually it is primarily it's about genetics. Primarily it's about how you look. And while there are certain things you can do with that, ultimately you are kind of dictated to a large degree by your genetics. Yeah. I see what you're saying. However, I've come to realize quite recently that it's not even as binary as just red pill and black pill, because I must say when I first had that discussion with James Tusk, I was actually quite surprised that he was a complete advocate for the geomaxing sort of thing. So there is some places where the red pill some aspects of the red pill and black pill cross over, and maybe some aspects where you yourself, I don't know if you consider yourself a red pill or not, but if you do, there's going to be some aspects that you disagree with other dating coaches on. Likewise, there's going to be some aspects of the black pill that I disagree with other black pillars on. So I think it's a broad spectrum, and it's not you either one or the other. You sometimes fall somewhere along each of those lines and you have different views.
Yeah, Yeah, definitely. I agree, because I was actually quite surprised, because I was watching your stream with James live pretty much. I had to miss some of it because I was in and out, but I was watching some of it live, and I was actually quite surprised, because you were saying that in your view the red pill didn't agree with geomaxing. That is to say, going abroad because maybe your market value is higher as a man in a different country than it is in your home country. And you were saying that the red pill didn't agree with that. And I commented, I think, saying, I think this is one area where the red pill and the bright pill agree. And you said, no, it isn't, because you'd had experience of, red pill people slating sort of travel. And I was actually really surprised by that, because I always thought that was something that we all sort of agreed on, but apparently not. And actually, when me and James then did a stream the next day, when we were talking about this, we actually got quite a few comments coming along and saying, oh, traveling is beta and you shouldn't be traveling to have to meet women and all of this kind of thing. So it kind of opened my eyes actually to something that I didn't realize on our side of the fence, that actually there is quite a lot of pushback about the idea of travel, to somewhere where maybe your sexual market value is going to be higher than in London or in New York or wherever you're from.
Yeah, I was just about to double down on that point. Like, I'd say the majority of like criticism comments from red pillars that I get in my comment section, they do not like the idea of geomaxing. They disagree with the idea of, they think that it's like a weak sort of solution, or they even say like it's a bit extreme, that you shouldn't have to go to such lengths, that they think it's extreme, like leaving the entire country just so you can try to get laid.
Yeah. And we were saying, well, it's a little bit more nuanced than that, really, because I mean, there are, without a doubt, there are certainly some countries that you can go to where it kind of is, let's say, very much more easy for say a white guy, for example, to meet the local women and interact with them and have sex with them or have sexual relationships with them. But we are not necessarily talking about that. We're talking about somewhere like, say, like we're in Russia at the moment. I mean, Russia, I wouldn't say. So Russia, our experience so far is, we're going out, we're interacting with girls, we're talking to them. And yeah, there is interest because we are from London and they're interested in that. And we do stand out somewhat because we are foreigners and we have a certain degree of exotic appeal. But it's not like it's completely easy. It's not like you're walking in and you're just going to get girls who are just sort of, prostrating themselves in front of you. So I think, if you're talking about something like sex tourism, that's one thing. And I think we could all agree that's the slightly grubbier end of it. But if you're just going to different locations because you have a little bit of exotic appeal, but also you find the girls and the culture interesting, I think that's perfectly fine. I don't see why people have a problem with that, really.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that point.
Yeah. But what I was quite keen to do today, because obviously the twos and fro's have been discussed quite a lot between the two sides of this debate. But what I was quite keen to do today, because I've watched quite a lot of your content, and one thing that you do really well, and I think this is really, really interesting stuff, is to actually break down the male face and talk about what actually makes a male face attractive. And I was quite keen on today's stream for you just to sort of talk to us a bit about that and explain what, from your view. Well, it's not just your view, is it? You would say this is an objective view. From an objective viewpoint, what is an attractive male face? What makes a guy attractive to women? So that we can see sort of what the benchmark is, really, if you like. And then I guess from there we can say, well, okay, fine. If you don't have a square jaw, if you don't look like this guy, is there anything you can do, or are you kind of screwed? But yeah, did you want to speak on that? But did you want to sort of? I think that'd be kind of cool way to go forward.
Yeah, that sounds really good, and I hope that we can even like move to kind of a solution sort of standpoint as well. So like we have the diagnosis of like different attractive or unattractive features, and then we can like kind of see and point people in the right direction of how they can like move around different aspects. Like if they don't like tick the right boxes in the right places. Just a really quick example. So say if somebody's jaw isn't so square, that it's a bit rounded, then they may be able to like have a well-groomed beard and trim it in the right way, so their beard gives the illusion of being more square or forward grown, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so did you want me to bring up your presentation, then we can start to go through?
Yeah, okay. I've got it up on my screen now. So
cool. Okay, here we go. Let's have this. Let's bring this into the stream. So here we go. This is a very good-looking guy that we're seeing before us.
So have you got it up on the screen yet?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I've broken this face down like into 55, a total of 55 different aspects that women would generally see as more attractive. And we'll start off with the jaw, and there's about 10 points for the attractive jawline. And the first point is hyoid skin. So that is the skin directly beneath your jaw, and this is quite closely linked to your body fat percentage actually. So obviously, like if you look at this man here, his jawline isn't so defined. He's got a lot of fatty deposits beneath his jaw, and it's not going to be seen as attractive.
That's the guy. Sorry, the guy towards the you're pointing at now with the mouse. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you see my mouse on the screen? Yeah.
Yes.
I'll just use this to like kind of guide as well.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. So he's got that kind of like, as you say, that sort of fat just beneath the chin.
Yeah. And that hides definition of the jawline.
Okay. So obviously the guy that you've got on the left, the main picture, he is I think you've said this is this is sort of perfect male face.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly where this image is from, but like it's been generated by computers to like take certain facial averages and ratios and try to determine like as best as these computers possibly can, like what an ideal like attractive male face would be.
Okay, cool. So we can see the loose skin. So so what other points?
So possible points of solution from a solution standpoint, I believe there's like a number of options. The main thing is trying to lower your body fat percentage, and you can do this like by simple things like going to the gym or working out, doing cardio, and eating healthily. Or like if there is a genetic side to it as well. So like if you take a look at this man, he's actually got surgery. I believe he got a combination of liposuction and skin removal because obviously if he just got liposuction, then his skin would just be drooping down. So he actually like got his skin tightened to make his jaw more defined.
Yeah, cool. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because this is something that actually, when we think about it, I suppose actually you do often hear about, the square-jawed hero. And actually, if you look at those, illustrations of superheroes in comics and things like that, they all have that very square jaw, don't they? But I think just from my own experience going around, you tend to think women don't talk about this a great deal, I don't think. You get women talking about eyes a lot, don't you?
Yeah,
you don't necessarily. But would you say the reality is when a guy walks into a bar or whatever, they are going to be looking at this, or at least on a subconscious level, they're going to be conscious of his jawline?
Definitely on a subconscious level. Like, however, in recent times, I actually am seeing it more on a conscious level. Like you said about, women are often quick to pick up on like attractive features such as the eyes, but I've heard a lot of women pick up on like attractive jawlines as well. So they'll say like, I don't know, Channing Tatum like has such a chiseled jawline or something along those sort of lines. So they are starting to pick up on it a little bit more.
Yeah, I actually saw. I think I was going down the rabbit hole looking at some of this stuff, and I did see, I forget who it was, but there was a celebrity, and a couple of women had written comments about him and said, "Oh, he's just got such a great jawline." I forget who it was. Maybe it'll come back to me, but no. So yeah, it's something that they are like verbalizing a lot more now.
Yeah, definitely. So should we move up on to the next point? I think we've got this one covered out of the way.
Yeah.
So the next one is like the chin to philtrum ratio. So the philtrum is this little bit of skin in between the nose and the upper lip, and then the chin is well, everyone knows what the chin is, and ideally the ratio should be 1 to 2.5.
1 to 2.5.
Yes.
Okay. So the chin has got to be somewhat bigger than the philtrum.
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, and if we take a look at the illustrations here, well, obviously these are cartoons, but maybe I should have brought like human ones into it. But if you see a man like with a excessively small chin to philtrum ratio, then like it often comes off a bit like juvenile and babyish. You'll often see like babies definitely have like this kind of jawline. I'm not sure if this is even a cartoon. I think this might be a real photo. I'm not too sure.
Yeah. Looks a bit like Michael Gove's got a chin like that, actually, hasn't he? If you know the politician.
Oh yeah. I know who he is.
Yeah. He's a bit like that. So it's too small, basically.
Yeah, it's too small. Yeah. And it's not as masculine. But then on the other end of the spectrum, then Obviously, like this is only a cartoon, but like you don't want your chin to be hugely massive either.
Yeah, right. Okay. Can that be actually unattractive then if the chin is too big?
Yeah, definitely, because it just doesn't look like within proportion.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so should we move on
Cool.
to the next point?
Yeah.
So the next one is like having an equal third of the jawline. So it should form this trapezium sort of shape. So you have your jawline, and then it goes into your chin, forming quite a sharp angle, like at these points. And then you have the rest of the jawline over here. So you don't want your jawline to look like either of these. So this one's like very triangular shaped.
Yeah. Okay. So two triangular shaped is bad.
Yeah, because otherwise, like it looks really pointy. Like it gives that like goblin or a devil like appearance. If you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't want it like completely square either, because like it just it makes you look like you've got a square head or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It looks a little bit sort of I don't know what the word is really. He looks like a model. It's not a model in a good way. It looks like a plastic sort of caricature.
Figurine. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
However, I don't think this is hugely like important. Like these, I can still see a lot of women saying that these jawlines are still like above average. They're like okay. Like obviously they're not as attractive as this one here, but like they're still decent, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because I think you've made the point that there are certain characteristics that are key in terms of attractiveness, and then there are others that are sort of more secondary. It's a nice to have, but it's not necessarily going to be a deal breaker.
Yeah, so like I don't know if people have been paying attention, but like I've included I've given like these importance ratings, and these are my like subjective opinions on like what these different factors mean. But just take a look at those, and obviously if it's rated from 1 to 5, so if I've given something a 5 out of 10, then like that is very much almost a deal breaker.
Okay. Yeah. 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 Okay. Cool. So I get the equal thirds of the jaw thing, because I mean because people always talk about symmetry, don't they? And I mean that is true, isn't it? Symmetry is important, right?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll move on to the next point, and this one, chin projection. So like if we take a look at this man here, so ideally the chin should like align with the lips, so it shouldn't just like roll backwards, you know, straight into the like back half of the jaw, such as this man here.
Yeah. Okay. And this guy as well, I guess you're going to go on to talk about it, but you can see the definition, can't you, of the is it the mandible? What's it called?
Yeah, so you've got the mandible here, then the ramus is the piece of bone directly beneath the ear that converges into the Gonian angle.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And I mean, it's pretty clear, isn't it? I think most people looking at that picture would agree that this is a good looking guy. I mean, they wouldn't be able to break it down necessarily obviously in the way that you are, but they would just intuitively they would understand this is a decent looking guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to achieve. Like I'm trying to educate people on, because most people can kind of see who attractive people are, but they wouldn't necessarily be able to explain why. Like they might just be able to say, oh, he looks like he's got a good jawline, but what particularly about his jawline makes it attractive?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to the next point. So this is what you said about earlier about the mandible. So ideally the mandible, which is this bone here, should like align with the nasal bridge, which is over here between the eyes.
So is that the bottom of the chin should protrude to the same extent as the top of the nasal bridge?
Yeah, so it should either at least meet it or potentially overshoot it by a little bit as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
So like you don't want it to be like this gentleman over here. So his like mandible is significantly recessed. It doesn't align at all with his nasal bridge. And this is like what a woman's jawline would look like. So this isn't going to be ideal. It's not masculine at all.
It's interesting actually, because I was seeing, I think it was either you or it may have been another content creator, but they were talking about this and they were saying that actually women are not necessarily as disadvantaged as men are, because you could have a woman with a recessed jaw like that and she could actually still be cute. She could kind of get away with it in a way that maybe you're saying that actually a man couldn't get away with it, right? He wouldn't be.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've heard of that point before. Yeah.
Because I actually saw a girl last night when we were out and about, and she had a somewhat recessed jaw, and she was still pretty cute. And I was remembering this black pill material, and I was thinking, you know, she would still get guys wanting to go and talk to her and date her and everything else. Whereas, you know, the black pill perspective would be, if that's a guy, he's likely to get passed over, or more often than not.
Yeah, definitely. I think it works on both sides of the coin, however.
Right.
So we'll get to the nose like in a bit, but I noticed one thing that definitely like can be a death sentence for a woman's looks is if her nose like hooks outwards, if it bulges, like if it has a, you know, a bump on the top of it, like, because that's a very masculine sort of trait. Like, and it can impact a man's looks by a little bit, but I don't think it's anywhere near as much as it will affect a woman's, because like that gives her a really witch-like appearance.
That's interesting. Actually, a very pronounced jawline on a woman can be a bit unattractive as well, can't it? Because it can look, if it looks too masculine, that can be a little bit.
Yeah, I could see what you're saying. Like, unless it's like full on like masculine jawline. But still, I've seen a lot of like very attractive women. Like, they have very good forward grown jawlines, and they do have good definition, and they're still considered attractive.
Yeah. That's
like, you'll see a lot of models like that. Like Angelina Jolie is a good example. If you recognize that face, so I believe I remember some content creator said that she's got a very like defined and like almost masculine jawline, but is still considered very attractive.
Yeah, true. I mean, would you say overall the black pill position is that actually women tend to get a bit more of a pass than men do?
Absolutely, yeah. Like, just thinking about, go on, you make your point first.
No, I was just going to say, it's funny, isn't it? Because the mainstream idea would be, if you think about, particularly nowadays, when people, you know, feminists are talking about this kind of thing, they say, well, it's all, you know, body shape and beauty standards for women are just so high, and they're judged so harshly, and they shouldn't be judged so harshly. But the black pill perspective is actually, well, hang on a minute, it's actually the guys who are getting judged more harshly overall.
Yeah, whoever believes that is nonsense, because like, I'm actually going to talk about this in my next video. Like, just here's one really good example. So plus size models, they only exist in the you know, female side, but they're not at all for the men. Like, for men, there is one body, there is one like level of height. Like, all models are over 6 foot, have a good gym body, low body fat percentage, while for women, like there are models from all sides of different like body types and heights and so on.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely true. I mean, you never get a body positivity, you know,
you never get plus size model for men.
Yeah, biggest beautiful guy. And that is actually a really glaring inequality, isn't it? That never gets addressed by the mainstream at all. So no, I do. I'm fully on board with that. I think that's absolutely true. I mean, it's worth saying though that certainly in Russia and Eastern Europe, the sort of the trend for body positivity, I think, is much less. It's not really here in the same way that you would see in England or America.
Yeah, I think it's because they're, you know, particularly a lot more sensitive in these kind of countries, while other like Eastern Bloc countries aren't, you know, to that level.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
But just going back to one of the other points you mentioned, so I definitely think that looks is definitely a lot easier for women to like get a pass for, rather than for men. Like, in my eyes, if a woman isn't like overweight, if she's reasonably low body fat percentage, like 99 times out of 100, I'm gonna at least find her a little bit attractive.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think guys are very willing to overlook some flaws, particularly. I think, like you say, I think weight is a bit of a deal breaker for many guys. Not all guys though. By any
no, but
means,
even then, it's definitely a deal breaker for men. Like, I've never seen. I work in schools at the moment, and like, I see this every day. I've never seen a couple like under 30 where the man has been overweight and the woman has been like very attractive, like 7+. You just don't see it, but you see it so many times the other way around, like overweight mothers with normal looking in shape men.
Yeah, indeed. I think the one thing caveat I would say about women is they get a big pass when they're young. I think as they get slightly older, it becomes perhaps, well, actually, maybe I'm being naive in even saying that. Because I think there's always going to be some simps who are just going to be like, you know, they'll accept whatever. But I certainly think young women, as long as they're relatively in shape and they're not overweight, I think they do get a pass with a lot of the stuff that the facial stuff that you're talking about here. I mean, I remember, I mean, God, I don't even know how to put this without getting into trouble with some commenters on YouTube. But I remember once a place I worked, and there was a girl who facially was pretty unattractive. Let's just say that for various reasons, pretty facially unattractive, but she had an amazing body, and you know she ended up dating a pretty high value guy. And there are a lot of guys who would say, you know, well, facially she's not great, but her body is fantastic, and on that basis they would probably have considered dating her, you know. Would that have been the case the other way around if that was a man and women were talking about it? Probably not.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's actually this thing called a gym cell in the black pill community, which is somebody with a really subpar face, and then they try to compensate with like getting a really aesthetic gym body, and like people actually view that as a cope, like because it doesn't lead to success as often as people would think it might.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And just before, okay, go on.
No, carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, just before we move on to the next point, I was just going to go back to the thing about age. So I think that obviously, like, women lose their looks faster than men. Like, I think that's one respect where women lose out, because like their looks will start to fade like at the age of 30, I would say, even. But men's probably like tend to stay around for a little bit longer, so they tend to age slower. But that is largely due to like the fertility windows that men and women have. So women lose their ability to produce fertile offspring. They start losing that ability like in their 30s, while men retain that ability all throughout their lifetime, pretty much. And like I was going to say that although women lose their looks faster at a faster rate than men do, their levels of SMV is still going to be significantly higher than men overall, even after like the depreciation effect. So like a 35-year-old woman has lost a lot of her looks since she was 25, and a man might have lost slightly less, but still that 35-year-old woman is going to be higher SMV. She's still going to have way more options on dating apps, and in the real world she's still going to get approached by a lot of guys compared to that man who's now 35 years old.
But what if he was, let's say he was a Chad and he's 35 and she was sort of average and now she's 35 and her looks, she's depreciated a little bit. Would you still say that her SMV is going to be higher?
No, but I'm saying if we take two, a man and a woman on equal looks levels. So let's say if we took a female 6 at 25 and a male 6 at 25, and then the woman decreases to like a 4 at age 35, while a man goes down to like a 5. The female 4 is still going to have significantly more options than the male 5. Hello?
Sorry about that. I think the internet went a little bit. Did you want to go to the next point?
I don't know if did you hear my last point or not?
Yeah, I heard.
Sorry, you're dropping a bit again. You just cut off.
Hello?
Hello? Yeah, I can. You was in the middle of a sentence.
Okay, so sorry if my internet drops. Do you want to just continue on with your points? If I do happen to drop out, because obviously internet's a little bit up and down here. But yeah. I got the last bit. So yeah. I think, well, the only thing I would say to that is obviously they're nice. You know, that there may well be other factors though, because the guy may have amassed some wealth. He may be have achieved high status by the age of 35, and we could argue the toss about the degree to which that's going to make a difference. But I think even a 35, woman who's in her late 30s, I mean, it for the most part, there's still going to be a queue of guys who are going to want to.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
We'll say that. We'll say that for another day. Because that could go on for 45 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Go on to the next point. And if I happen to drop, just carry on with the presentation because obviously my internet's a little bit up and down.
Okay, no worries. The one thing that I am worried about though is because we're streaming from your end, I'm not sure if people will be able to still pick myself up. Because obviously we're streaming from your end.
Yeah. Okay. I think they will. But anyway, let's continue anyway.
Okay, let's carry on. So the next one is that the mandible, which we've just spoken about, should be close to, but not exactly parallel to the ground. So an ideal angle is roughly 10 degrees from the horizontal plane. Or is he, I think he might have dropped again. Okay, well, I'll just carry on. I'm not sure if people can hear me, but feel free to put in the live chat. So compared to this man over here, he has a angle of 30 degrees, which is like too steep. Like this appears quite feminine compared to this mandible over here, which is closer to the horizontal. Cool. For the next, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, I just finished on the last point. I've moved on to something else now.
Yeah. Carry on.
Okay, yeah, so the next one is a straight mandible, so it shouldn't be curved like this, which will appear too feminine.
Cool.
Yeah, and it's the same sort of reasoning as before, like it's these higher testosteronic shaped features. And this is like quite an important point, so I've given this an importance of 5. Like this is definitely something that like can be a deal breaker. So if we take a look at this man here with this animation, his jawline's a lot less unattractive because it has this curvature, while this man has like much more of a straight, strong, high testosteronic mandible.
Right. Yeah.
So moving on to the next point, the Gonian angle, which is the piece of bone between the mandible and the ramus, that should be ideally set below the mouth area. So like it shouldn't be like in line with the mouth or close to the ear. So because otherwise that's going to give you like a steep gradient of the mandible, which again links back to that idea of like looking feminine.
So you want quite a shallow drop then.
Yeah. So you want quite a lot. Like these last couple of points all kind of tie in with each other. So a long ramus will give you a low set Gonian, which will give you a near parallel to the ground mandible. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Carry on.
Yeah. So that was that point. And as I say, like all of these kind of things tying with each other. So the Gonian angle should ideally be like 110 degrees, which is the like where the ramus connects with the mandible. So this angle here should be 110 degrees.
Right. Okay. Cool. People in the comments are giving me flack now because they're saying.
Sorry, you just broke up there.
So I got guys in the comments saying Troy is completely lost. Everyone can hear what the Red Pill guy just doesn't know what to say, so he's pretending he can't hear you. That's not the case. I'm in Moscow. I've got a bit of a dodgy connection, so it keeps dropping out. Just to try and clear that up. But so. Yeah. And then point 10.
Yeah, I was just going to say that those people are probably just trolls trying to get a reaction. Exactly. Like you always get those kind of people. And the last one, all tying in with each other about the long ramus.
Yeah.
So that's the jawline. Like there's 10 points for that. So, like obviously you want it as masculine of a jaw as possible. So do you want to like go into some potential solutions that you would see suitable?
Yeah, definitely. Because obviously there will be people watching this who they feel that their jawline is objectively, not as chiseled as the guy in black and white, and they're going to think, okay, so what do I do about this?
Yeah. So do you want to start?
So what shall I start in terms of solutions? Well, I think the key solution really that everyone talks about is losing body fat, isn't it? Right? Because
definitely.
If you lose body fat, then you're going to have more definition.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think that the two main sort of solutions definitely would be body fat. But even then, like if you're low body fat and you still have some of these other issues, then that's when you look at facial hair.
Yes.
And that can be, and I have 2 points on facial hair for Like, because a lot of people are like, oh, do I grow a beard or do I not? Well, there's two criteria. The first one is, can I adequately grow facial hair? Like, is
Yeah.
it attractive facial hair? Because a lot of men, particularly young men under the age of 25, their facial hair is too soft, it's too fluffy, it just doesn't look good, really.
Yeah.
Like it just looks like you could blow it off, you know.
Yeah, or
So
if it's patchy as well, it's not really going to do the job, is it? It's not really going to cover to the degree that you want it to anyway.
yeah, so that's the first criteria. So like, can you
Yeah.
grow a well maintained and well groomed beard? And then the
Yes.
second criteria is my jawline adequate enough?
Yes, exactly. So, what about mewing then? Because everyone bangs on about mewing, don't they? And I'm not even entirely sure what it is, but it's a technique, isn't it, to sort of try to readjust the without doing surgery, to readjust the sort of positioning of the jawline, right?
Yeah, definitely. As you say, like I hear a lot of talk about it. I think that the results, the expected results, are lower than a lot of people expect them to be. So like
Yeah.
I've never seen a case of a man who's mewed himself from a 3 out of 10 jawline to an 8 out of 10 jawline. It just doesn't work like that. I think the most amount of results you're ever going to see is like between about half and 1 point. So like you might be able to go from like a 5 to about a 5.5 or 6, but I
Yeah.
don't think that the results are like as massive as a lot of the mewing community put them out to be.
Okay, right. What about chewing gum? Because that's another old chestnut, isn't it?
Yeah,
Does
yeah.
that
People
work?
often, yeah, it's the same sort of thing with like mewing. Like it might be able to give you a little bit more definition, strengthen some of the bones in your jawline, but I think that the results are like massively limited. But one
Okay.
thing, however, I would say is quite significant. But this is like mainly for the developmental years, is making sure that you breathe through your nose and not through your mouth, like on a daily basis. Because otherwise, if you breathe through your mouth, then like your jaw drops, like you're not getting adequate growth. And I've actually seen some shocking photos from like there was this picture going around that there was this like 11 or 12-year-old man or 12-year-old boy, and then he bought a pet hamster or something, and then he was allergic to that hamster, and he kept it alive like all throughout his teenage years. But the problem with the pet hamster is that it blocked up his nose, so he was forced to breathe through his mouth. And like the difference between his jawline at 11 years old, between like when he turned 16, which is all throughout those crucial puberty years, his like jawline
Yeah.
ended up becoming significantly recessed, a steep Gonian angle, like it wasn't attractive at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And is this why sort of mouth breathers get a bad time online? Because is it to do with this?
Yeah, definitely. So I think
Yeah.
that is like the one kind of mewing aspect that is important, but
Yeah.
it's going to have much bigger effect for people at like in like pre-puberty age groups. I don't think it will make much of a difference if you're like 25 and onwards.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good stuff. All right. Well, shall we move on to the next part?
Yeah, so I think we've covered a lot of potential solutions for like if you lack a adequate jawline. So anyway, moving on to the
Yeah.
next one, which is
What
going to be
about
more.
actually just
Go
one
on.
last note? Just one last note? What about simply keeping your jaw clenched when you're out and about? Because you can sort of make the parts here. I think is that the mandible there, or sort of the the bone here or the joint here. You can make that seem more pronounced if you keep your jaw clenched.
Are you talking about people who walk around like squeezing their
Well,
jaw
a bit of a
bones and
yeah, a bit of a Zoolander type thing, but you can. There are certain things that you can do facially that sort of make it seem a bit more pronounced. I think. Does that work, or is that just try hard?
no, I think it's way too try hard. Like
Okay.
my first relationship, like I actually asked her about this question because like she's noticed it a lot of the times before, and she said that it just comes off way too cringy, and like you get these men who walk around trying to look like really cool and like they're the cat's bollocks, but it just comes off really
It just
cringy,
doesn't
and
work. Yeah,
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 it just makes them look like they're trying too hard, trying to look cool, trying to look hard and masculine alpha, and it just comes off really pathetic, really.
yeah. Okay, okay. So they're almost jester. It's not quite jester maxing, is it? But it's that sort of thing where you're just you know
Yeah.
you're trying, you're overcompensating for something you can't really compensate for.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
Anyway, moving on to the next section, which is all to do with the eyes, and this might be a little bit harder in terms of solutions, but we'll get to them at the end.
Yeah.
And I believe there's 14 or 15 points for this one.
Blimey.
So the first one, so there's quite a lot to do with the eyes, and the first one is like the height to width ratio of the eyes. So ideally, it should be a little bit more narrow in terms of vertical height. So a ratio of 1 to 3 is more ideal, because otherwise, if you have these like big, bulging, rounded eyes, then it looks a bit childish. It's quite vulnerable and preyish. Like you often see. I'm not sure if you watched the video, or anyone else who's watching the stream right now has seen my video on the perfect eyes, but like prey animals such as deer, squirrels, like the sort of thing, like a deer in the headlights, they have big bulging eyes and they're too rounded.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I have to say, this is something that I recognized really young. When I was looking at, you'd look at like catalogs for clothes, when I was a kid. And I remember looking at pictures of male models in these catalogs, and they all seem to have these really thin eyes. They had that quite mean look in the eye, And for some reason, I picked up on that as a kid, and I thought, oh, this must be attractive. And so I would always sort of like narrow my eyes if I was trying to, look cool to impress a girl or something, because I thought I recognized this quite early on as being something that these, obviously so-called attractive guys had. And the thing about hunter eyes versus prey eyes, it does make sense to me, because if you're like a rabbit in the headlights with these really wide eyes, that does seem to look weaker than having that slightly more menacing look about you, right?
Yeah.
So is that a solution? I mean, can you just narrow your eyes when you're out and about, or is that is that a bit try hard?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the same thing that we just talked about, like trying to squeeze your jawline together to make it look more attractive. Like, I think girls aren't stupid. They're going to be able to see that these guys like walking around doing it. And you're never going to be able to keep it up forever. Like, you'll be able to remember it for about 10 minutes into the interaction, but then after that, like, you're not really going to be focused on it. So I think it's going to have a very limited effect. And even then, like, how much difference is it actually going to make? It's not going to bring you up again from like a 3 out of 10 to a like an 8 out of 10.
Well, actually, no, I agree. Actually, XPD has I probably shouldn't even show this one. So the Chinese have the best eyes. I mean, this is a point actually that I saw raised on a different stream, because I think actually it was Alexander Grace who raised it, maybe even with you. He was trying to be very delicately to say it, but obviously, Asian people do tend to have somewhat more, slimmer eyes, if you like. So are we saying therefore that they have the best eyes, or is that not right?
I've heard that argument before, but the main difference between like East Asian eyes and Caucasian eyes is like the eyelid sort of crease, and there's this surgery that a lot of East Asians have to make their eyes appear more Western. And whether this is a big cultural influence or a like objective influence that's stemming from like even evolutionary reasonings, like indicating higher testosterone and other things like that, but generally eyes with an eyelid crease on the top lid and bottom lid, I'm not entirely sure, but like an eyelid crease will make your eyes generally more Western and more attractive.
Okay. Okay.
And the vast majority of Asians lack that feature, hence why they use the surgery.
Right. Okay. And your local curry cell says that a big part of having good eye area is the brow. I suppose you're going to go onto this in a second, but the brow ridge, which Asians don't have. Is that something you were going to touch on, the brow ridge, because that's quite important, isn't it?
Yeah, that is one of the points of the eyes later on. I disagree on the extent of its importance. Like, I don't think it's hugely as important as other features listed, but it's still definitely like something to consider.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So moving on to the next point about eye shape.
Yep.
So if we take a look at this eye here, he has really curved lower eyelids, and this one has really curved upper eyelids. And this is not going to be as attractive because, again, it makes your eyes look really rounded. Like almost like the deer in the headlights that you just said about. So ideally, you want a flattened curve, which is going to make the eyes more narrow, more piercing, more dominant.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is like really important. So I said this is like a 5 out of 10.
Right.
No, 5 out of 5. Sorry.
Right. Okay.
Hmm.
Cool.
So like it should form this like almond shape, pretty much.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next point, eye spacing. This one's actually like quite a rare feature. I don't see like I've rated a lot of people. Like that's one of the services that I offer on my channel. Like I provide people an objective analysis of their face, like highlighting different features. And it's quite rare that I see someone with inadequate eye spacing. But if we take a look at these two examples here, on the left we have this man whose eyes are quite far apart. So ideally the eyes. So this is like a rule of thumb sort of thing that your eyes should ideally be one eye's breadth apart from each other. Meanwhile, this man, his eyes like don't, the space is too wide, so his eyes are too far apart. Meanwhile, if we take a look at this man, his eyes are too close together.
Yeah,
which gives like an inbred look.
Yeah. Okay. Whereas the other guy looks a bit alien-like.
Yeah, it's like alien, like quite innocent. So like you'll often see, so like in Disney films and cartoons, things like that. The like animals or characters in the films will have big, round, wide eyes, like which isn't going to be really masculine.
Yeah, Wayne Ronnie says Troy was squint maxing in his youth, which is absolutely true. I was. Anyway.
Yeah, yeah, that was the thing you were saying about earlier. The squinting to make your eyes look more menacing.
Yeah.
So that's eye spacing. The next point, how deep set your eyes are. So obviously, like you want your eyes to be more deep set. That looks more masculine compared to if we look at this man whose eyes are like protruding from his skull, which again goes back to those ideas that we've already said about looking quite vulnerable, weak. Like a lot of animals, like bugs, they will have big protruding eyes to spot potential predators in their environment.
Yeah, I know there are different theories about why some of these things are genetically selected for, if you like. But would you say that, in your view, is it as simple as to say that if you look a bit more mean and menacing, women are going to find that attractive because you look more like you're going to be sexually dominant, you're going to be able to protect her, you're going to have more powerful offspring? Is that a kind of shorthand way of breaking it down, would you say?
Yeah, to an extent. Like I often think that most people miss the mark in the respect that they're too feminine looking rather than like too dominant and masculine looking. But obviously you don't want to look like the Incredible Hulk. You don't want these really super like extra masculine features, like a massive, hugely overgrown, forwardly grown chin. That's just going to have like undesirable effects.
Yeah, I guess the counter argument to that would be, what about all the K-pop guys, right? Because obviously there are these dudes who arguably look quite feminine in terms of their features, but they have hundreds of thousands of screaming female fans. But is that because of the age of the women that they appeal to?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things going on here. So first, like age is definitely a factor. So the women that are often attracted to these K-pop stars are quite younger, like in their mid to high teens, I would say. Like you're going to get a few in their early 20s as well. So like their perception of what is attractive is usually going to be something a bit more like close to their age, a bit more feminine. Meanwhile, most girls, like once they're more mature and they're older, in their early to mid 20s, I would say go for something more like this. So like a more masculine look.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
And the only thing, other thing I was going to say on that is that like this K-pop like fad that's going on, like I think it is a bit overrated. Like I don't think the whole world is like the whole population of the UK and US is turning to Korea to chase these K-pop stars. I still think that it's a really niche market. Like you're probably getting like 1% of girls that are chasing these like K-pop stars, but the rest are still going to be by and large chasing the ideal like Chad sort of look.
Yeah, I guess. Although I think the sort of baby-faced pop star has always been a thing, haven't they? So
yeah.
maybe you could argue maybe that's just because it's appealed to these younger girls who are pretty much still in their teens for the most part.
Yeah. Anything else that you wanted to say on that point?
No, that's fine.
Okay, so moving on to the next one on eye orbits. And again, like this is all kind of tying in with the same sort of ideas. So your eye orbit should be more compact, which is the bone that's surrounding the eyes. So you
Yeah.
don't want it to look like this because that makes you look tired. And it's also linked with like youth and aging as well. So as people age, their eye orbits tend to grow larger and bigger because the bone surrounding their eye like erodes and it expands outwards. So, like, if you have more compact eye orbits, you're more likely to be perceived as young, healthy, youthful.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Next point. Yep. Anything that you wanted to say on that, or?
No, that's cool. That's cool.
Okay, yeah. So this is quite a big one. A lot of when people talk about eyes, like this is often the first thing that people come to mind. That comes to mind. So, I think the black pill community has like an obsession with this particular feature, Canthal tilt. Yeah, like I always hear people bang on about this.
I hear this a lot.
Yeah, but it is really important as well. So, ideally, the eyes should be positively or neutrally tilted. So this is positive tilt. So the inner portion of the eye is lower set than the outer portion. But the main thing that's undesirable is the dreaded like negative Canthal tilt because this because this will make you look like really droopy, tired, sad, saggy, like and prey eye-ish.
Yeah. Now, Nicolas Cage has this slightly, doesn't he?
Nicolas Cage. I'm not aware of the name. Yeah, I have seen a few actors that would conventionally like be seen as attractive despite having this negative Canthal tilt. So like there are exceptions definitely, but I'm sure you'll see that is the case for the majority of these points as well. But generally speaking, neutral or positive is going to be more ideal compared to negative.
Well, Welsh Hibby says Troy has this, and I think I probably do slightly, don't I? I don't know how pronounced it is in me, but perhaps I do have that somewhat.
Yeah, like some people actually go to the extent of like measuring the angle of like how attractive your Canthal tilt is. So like I don't know, I haven't properly like analyzed your photos or anything like that, but it didn't like stick out at me. Like if it was as bad as this man's here, then I definitely would have like picked up on it straight away.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is slightly. I don't think it's that pronounced, but I mean, mate, I could be wrong. I'm just,
yeah, if it's a couple degrees like here and there, like I don't think many people are really going to notice.
Yeah.
But what's one thing that really struck my mind for this particular feature, because remember how you was talking about like female features, like do they overlap with this sort of model? Negative Canthal tilt can actually be quite detrimental for women as well. And one of my first relationships with a girl, like she had a ever so slight negative Canthal tilt, and she had no idea like what this thing was. But I remember that she always used to wear eyeliner to like, so it would flick up, make her look like she's got a positive Canthal tilt to like compensate for that really. And then like I remember bringing it up to her once. I said, "Oh, do you wear the eyeliner to make yourself look like you've got a bit of a positive tilt?" And she had absolutely no idea what I was talking about. Yeah,
I'm not surprised, mate. To be honest, I mean, come on. But no, it's true though, isn't it? Because actually, I see a lot of girls that actually really like this. When girls they've got the eyeliner and they have it coming upwards like that. Have you seen that a lot? It almost
definitely.
That. And I always quite like that when girls have that. I think it looks quite sexy. But is that why? That's sort of why they're doing it then, is it? Or that's the look that they try to go for to make their eyes look more positively.
Positively tilted, yeah.
And
I remember like bringing this up to her, and she had no idea what I was talking about. But I just found it amazing that even if people don't know the science behind it, and like they're still able to identify these flaws, particularly women. Like women are like well aware of their flaws, but they don't know the science behind it, and they're able to use makeup to be able to identify these flaws and adequately cover them up or try to do their best to fix them.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. This stuff is this is intuitively known, isn't it? A lot of this stuff, but it's just that we don't. Most people don't have. Yeah, most people don't have the vocabulary or the insight to break it down to the level that you are.
Yeah. I think it's quite subconscious. But the point that I was just about to make was that you don't see it anywhere near as much for men. as you do for women. I think women are a lot more meticulous about their appearance, and they always are able to spot the small, subtle differences that make them less attractive. But you just don't see that with men. And like this is one of the main reasons that like I believe that women actually care about looks more so than men, because they are more discriminate about finding imperfections in their appearance, while men aren't so much.
Yes, I think that's correct, because there has been a sense for guys. I mean, it's changing now, because you've got the, you know, all the Essex boys, you know, who are very, very, and even not even Essex. You know, if you look at, there seems to be a much more it's much more accepted now for guys to be interested in male beauty, and even down to things like waxing and all that kind of stuff, right? And some even use of cosmetics in some cases. But previously, it was seen as a bit effeminate, wasn't it, to care too much about looks? And I think it was something that guys just would naturally shy away from.
Yeah, so they wouldn't pay as much attention to it.
Yeah.
Like obviously you get obvious stuff. So if I see a guy like this with his hair, you know, covering his forehead, like that might suggest that he's Norwooding or balding at some parts of his head. Like I could be right, I could be wrong. Like you see the obvious stuff. Like you can see obvious times when men do something about their looks to try to cover something up, but nowhere near to the extent that women do, like with all the makeup and other beauty sort of things, tools that they have.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. So moving on to the next point.
Okay.
Next one. This is quite small, so we won't really talk about it too much. Like there's this thing called a downward pointing medial canthus, which is like where your like the inner portion of your eye like tips down a bit more. But it's not hugely important, but it can just be a little bit bonus. Like it makes you look a bit more exotic.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And like just highlighting how unimportant this feature is. Like this man who still has his feature, like his eyes are still very below average because he's lacking other features like these ones, which are more important. Yeah,
fine. Okay, so that doesn't really make much difference.
Okay, next one, upper eyelid exposure, and this is a very important one. Yeah, so if we take a look at these guys here, like their eyelid exposure is, you know, huge. Like it looks very saggy and tired, sad. Like it's just not attractive, and it's not as masculine as like these eyes here with minimal or no upper eyelid exposure.
Yeah, so this guy on the far right, he's got a negative tilt as well, hasn't he?
Yeah,
so he's kind of got both.
Yeah, he's got negative tilt,
which gives you that kind of hangdog expression.
Yeah. So these eyes would be considered like a 3 out of 10, I would say, by most women.
Right. Okay.
And the gentleman on the left, he's actually the highest paid male model, like right now. What's his name? Oh, do you know his name? I forgot his name. It's just disappeared out of my mind for a second. Oh, Sean O'Pryor. Sean O'Pryor. Yeah, he's the world's highest paid male model, and like his eyes are very attractive, like because he's got so many of these attractive features.
Right. Yeah. So truth here says, this is getting into another conversation, is that you can get girls if you have other qualities. Well, that is the red pill argument. The purpose of today really is more just for Wheat to sort of set out the looks case, if you like. These are the optimal characteristics that you should have, because we've been on for nearly an hour already. So to get then into the argument about, well, can you mitigate all of this with doing game and so on and so forth, which obviously I think to some extent you can, and we'd probably argue the toss over that, but that would make this into a very long stream, so we might not be able to sort of go fully into that this time. But I thought it was just interesting to sort of like for you to go through the looks theory, because I think on Red Pill channels it's not something that gets talked about very much at all.
Yeah, and definitely on Red Pill channels they will never talk to you about these kind of things, the genetic side of things that you can't change, but they will talk more so of the things that can be mitigated, such as like growing a beard, like getting it trimmed, haircuts, so on.
Yeah, exactly. And by the same token, there's nothing wrong with doing those things. I mean, I think you should get a decent haircut. You should like look at grooming and stuff. But I guess your argument would be, well, that's all fine and dandy. But it's if your eyes are suboptimal or your jawline is suboptimal, that's not. It's in the big scheme of things, it's not going to make a big difference.
Yeah. So a lot of these features, such as this one, like these are only fixable with surgery.
Okay. I've just disappeared. My looks are so bad that the camera's broken.
Oh.
I was going to say, I mean, the one area where I do sort of disagree a little bit with Black Pill would be to say, Black Pill channels will say, oh, this is all hidden knowledge and society's kept this a secret. And, now the Black Pill is revealing the truth and all of this kind of stuff. And I'm not sure that's entirely true, because don't we all kind of know? I know you'll say, well, look at Disney films and, where the geeky, guy gets the girl in the end and stuff. But don't we all kind of know that the good-looking guy is going to clean up? Isn't that sort of common knowledge already anyway, really, for most people?
Yeah,
even
I think
if they don't break it down to this extent.
Yeah, I think it is, like, people kind of know about it, deep down, but like they often reject the ideas. And there's several reasons for this. Like one of the main ones is that like women don't want to be perceived as shallow, so they will often reject these ideas that they don't care about looks as much as like a lot of people perceive to be. Like if you know what I mean.
Yes, and I think there is truth in that. I think there is this meme that women are not bothered about looks and everything, and that actually is clearly not the case. And I also would agree to a large extent that it probably is getting more pronounced now with Instagram and with the way society is and everything like that. I think women do just, we are a much more looks-based society, and I think there's no getting away from that.
Yeah, definitely. Mainly because of the like explosion of like online's presence in the modern world. Like, this is the way I've always put it. Like I've said this so many times, that Instagram will show you how good looking a girl's boyfriend is, but it won't show you how good his game is, his personality is, his confidence is, and so on. So a point I often raise is like the stuff that you guys are teaching, they definitely would have worked maybe 25 years ago or so when online wasn't such a big thing. But now, like, I'm not denying that it still still can work, because obviously if you stay away from the online scene, then it can work definitely still a bit. But I think the main thing is that it's going to work less so because of the explosion of online.
Well, this is the big sort of like the center of the contention, really, isn't it? Because this guy here, Upden Plates, said, Troy said to some extent game can compensate, which is a gotcha. I think a lot of black pillars would agree. Well, I don't know if all black pillars would agree, to be honest, but some probably would. And he says, I guess it depends how much some is. Well, I mean, I think, I don't think anybody's, well, certainly nobody that I work with, I think, is denying that looks don't play a part. I think that yes, and if you are a very, very good looking guy, but you don't have a lot of game and you get taught a bit of game, then you're going to get better results than if you are a guy who objectively is a lot worse looking and learns a bit of game. I don't think anyone really is denying that that's the case, but I think this whole area of contention is around, first off, how bad is bad? Like how many guys are actually beyond the pale, beyond help, if you like. Like how big is that contingent in reality? And secondly, as he says, to what extent does game help? To what extent do social skills start to mitigate this stuff? And that, I think, is the big area of debate, really. But I don't think anybody's seriously arguing that looks don't matter, because I think everybody kind of, if they are, I think they are being disingenuous.
Yeah, this is going to be like a slight deviation from the topic, but it seems like the live chat is like quite interested in this. So like I came up with this chart like a while ago. I'm not sure if you've seen the video where I've talked about this, but it kind of plots how important looks and game is. So like obviously, like I've made these two scales. So obviously the look scale that everyone knows of, like from 1 to 10, and then I've also made a game scale. So what you were just making the point there that if you're in like that middle tier sort of looks, so like if you're in that 5 to 7 sort of range, then I would say that that is the point where game can help you. Because like if you're a 6 out of 10, say, then like it's unlikely that girls are going to do all the work for you, unlike male models.
Yeah.
But if you're a 6 out of 10, if you're able to better yourself in game, like to the point, you know, like such as yourself, then like you can get results and consistent results from that.
Yes, yes. I think this is the key area for me, really. And I was talking to James about this the other day on his stream, is how many people are actually falling into the sub 5 category? Because you're saying that these guys,
category?
Yeah, the incel zone.
Yeah.
And
So that's like a big point of discussion.
And that is, I think, is a really interesting question, because in your view, you're saying those guys effectively, they could learn all the game in the world and it's not really going to help because they are sort of beneath the, you know, their looks are just the glass ceiling. They're not going to raise any higher no matter what they do.
Yeah, I think this graph is like a general sort of rule. Like maybe I would make a little bit of changes or leeway. So I don't know, maybe you're going to get the odd 4 out of 10 who gets super lucky and like perfects his appearance and game in every respect, and is still able to be successful. Like you'll get some of those doing well, but I think you could definitely draw the line at sub 3. I would say, like anyone who's like 3 or below, like I think they are like beyond like saving, unless, you know, like they win the lottery or, you know, do some of the other sort of routes such as status, you know, that guy such as James brought up in the last stream. Like he said that guy with no arms, he was able to become a successful like comedian or motivational speaker or whatever, and like he was able to attract women through that route. But your average sort of guy, no, so your average status guy, if he's a sub 3, then definitely like learning game, I don't think it's going to work for him.
Well, you would, I'd probably argue, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think some black people would say you're just going to look like a dancing monkey, effectively, because you're trying to do game, and the women are going to think this guy it's almost worse because he's trying to do things in order to make himself more attractive, but actually his looks are such that it's just not going to work. And actually it would have almost been better if he hadn't tried.
Yeah, I think it actually it gets to the extent, if you work your way down as these lower points on the look scale, game actually has the effect of being negative, like detrimental to your game, because your success, because you're portraying confidence without a reason to necessarily be confident, and you're going to end up coming off as delusional. Like women are going to ask questions such as, who is this guy? Like, what gives him the right to pretend to be this confident? Like, why is he doing this? Like, why is he thinking that he has a chance with me? Like, they're going to think that it's like almost an insult.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, this actually flies in the face of that piece of game wisdom, which is to say that, Chateau Hartis talks about this. I forget the exact way he puts it, but it's something like confidence without any reason for being confident is an aphrodisiac, right? It's like extreme confidence, even when there's no foundation to it, can be attractive. And in my experience, that has been true. But then I suppose you could say, but that's because you fall on a certain part of the look scale where things like that do bump you. You know, I've certainly walked up to women who were probably out of my league in terms of looks, and I've done it in a very confident way. And that seems to have worked because it seems to have given me this halo effect in their eyes, which has added some attraction points to me. But I guess the argument would be, but if you don't fall sufficiently within their looks threshold, then that's just not going to work at all.
Yeah, so I think as long as this is just a general rule, so like as long as you're like a 5 or above, then I think the game is going to add points, that it is going to lead to an improvement in results on average for most guys. But like if you're a 3 or below, like, you know, learning game, like it's not going to have the results that you want it to have.
Okay, right. I mean, we could, and then we can go into examples, because you can say, I mean, there are celebrity examples and stuff like this. And I mean, we could, and then people will say, well, that's just an outlier, or that's because he was famous, or et cetera, et cetera. But maybe let's not go there for now. Let's, should we move on?
Should we go back to the, I only brought it up because a lot of people in the live chat were finding it interesting.
I mean, the only final thing I would say on this is, I think it's what James and I were arguing the other day, and you might disagree, but I think the proportion of people who actually fall into that zone where game is not going to help at all, I believe is pretty small. Now, that's not to disregard their experience. That's not to say, so therefore why, those people are unimportant, so don't bother about it, because of course they are. And if that really is your reality, that's a terrible thing. But my largest issue really with the black pill thinking is, I think that a lot of guys who actually fall somewhere in the middle, who are sort of average, can fall into black pill thinking and just go, oh, okay, well, it's over, and sort of absolve themselves from responsibility for trying to improve their situation when they didn't really need to do that. Because I was one of them, right? I mean, I went through a bit of a black pill stage when I thought, oh, I'm too ugly, I'm never going to get anybody, so it's over, let's not bother. But actually, that wasn't, for me, that it turned out that wasn't really true. If I'd have just, applied myself and done some self-improvement and learned some game, then I would have got more results. And that's where it concerns me a bit, because I think some people, maybe they fall into this way of thinking, and actually it's kind of not really true for them. They've almost downvoted themselves. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying. I think that the black pill applies to like anyone who's sub 8, which is going to be like 95% of guys. And
Okay.
that's so, like, if I was going to add one more chart, like one more zone on this chart, I would say I would have it like in the top corner here, so like 8+ and like above like a 6 in game. This is like your abundance sort of zone. Like the thing that's stopping most people from achieving abundance for average guys is because they lack the looks. So like I'm an average guy, and in fact I've been asked this question a lot myself, like why I am black pilled. But like if I want to achieve abundance, the main thing stopping me from getting there, like becoming in that top 1%, is the limiting factors that I can't change, such as height, like my facial structure, and other genetic factors. Because being honest, like I've optimized the factors that you've talked about, like to a significant extent. Like I've definitely maxed out my looks in this, like, the soft ways. So like I've done the haircuts, I've done the gym, the shower, and so on. To a quite a great extent. Like I've probably done about 95% of like the sort of soft looks maxing that the red pill talks about. And I would say like my game is definitely like above average too. Like I'm not gonna blow smoke up my own arse here and say that I've been studying it for years and like I'm really confident I'm the best person. And I'm not gonna say that, but I'll definitely say that I'm more confident than most people. And given this, like this still like the main thing that's stopping me from getting abundance, I would say is like most people who are sub 8 is because they are limited in this looks sort of department.
Yeah, I mean, well, Face and LHR here says 1 in 3 men are in the insole zone, but I don't know what that's based on. I don't know.
No, so I know what he's referring to. So there's this chart going around which shows that in 2008 only 10% of men reported no sex in the last, I think, year or 2 years, something like that. And then in 2020, it spiked up to like 30% or something ridiculous. I will give credit, like a lot of them, how many of them are actually in this zone? How many of them fall into this category because they're rejected because like they aren't putting in enough effort? Like, that's where the kind of debate is like leading towards, because obviously you are going to get some percentage of guys who do fall into this zone and they put in work and they are still not getting results. But then you're also going to have some other guys who are high body fat, like they're sitting at home on their ass and not doing anything, and they're rejected because of that. So like I think that's where the debate kind of falls into.
Yeah, I mean, I'm black pill in the sense that I've seen your video where you talk about, your black pilling, one of your biggest black pilling moments where you liked this girl and you sort of got into the, I think you admit yourself, you sort of got into the friend zone, and then she met a friend of yours, or she met this other guy who was good looking, and she kind of went with that guy, and you saw that as being a sort of a confirmation of this fact that actually women are very motivated by looks, and you'd come across as being a great guy. You'd obviously had this great rapport with her and everything, but she still went for the dude who was, you're saying was better looking. And I can identify with that because I've had things like that have happened to me in the past. And I remember a really brutal well, black pilling type event I had once some years ago when I was out with a really good looking friend of mine, and I was really good at approaching, and I approached these two girls and we were chatting and blah, blah, blah. And my mate didn't really do anything. He was just kicking back in the background. We all ended up going back to their place. And then, you know, sure enough, at the end of the night, he ended up sleeping with one of the girls. And I kind of go home with empty-handed with my dick, well, with my dick in my hand, metaphorically. Now, So from that perspective, I could say, yeah, you know, it's a cruel world. You know, the better-looking guy won out. I am black pill, but where I suppose I differ is that I didn't then go, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but I didn't then say, all right, so it's over, and start posting online and going, well, you know, this is just how the world is. I may as well give up and blah, blah, blah. Because the truth of the matter is that I can still meet and attract women. I mean, if I'm stood next to that guy in a bar, maybe they're going to go for him because that's just how the world is, right? You know, women they do like looks and so on and so forth. But that doesn't mean I can't get anybody. You know, it's just more I've got to perhaps, you know, not hang around with him when I go on the pull, you know. So this is the whole thing about. I agree with much of what you're saying, but at the same time, it just troubles me a bit if guys are going, "Oh, well, it's over," when actually, does it have to be for all of these guys?
Yeah. So, like, I think that's what I'm trying to like convey in this kind of chart here. That like, if you are in this zone, like me and James spoke about this in the last live stream, then you should like try to, you know, position yourself further this way, so like learn a bit of game and improve your looks. But if you're in this zone, then like the main sort of things that you need to do is like improve your looks, and then like once you've reached a decent level, then you start to looking towards game. And like just in the situation that you know you described there, so let's say that the guy that you was with, like he was a Chad, like he was an 8 out of 10, and even if you said that he wasn't really doing much, so he probably had like, I don't know, 5 points of game. Like he kind of just responded in basic ways. So like he would end up roughly here on the chart. Meanwhile, you like, you know, I would say like you're in that 5 to sort of 6 range. So like if you're here, and even if you have above average game, like if you're like 8 points of game, he's still going to do better than you despite having less game.
Yeah, no, I agree. But the point that I'm making is that that may well be true, but I didn't then think, okay, right, so I'm just never going to leave the house again. It's over for me. I just sort of, I mean, there are various things you can do. One of them is talking to a lot of different women. Now, I know black pill guys might say, well, you're being a dancing monkey or whatever, but the truth is, you can take a lot of shots, and you don't have to put yourself up against somebody who's going to very obviously be very strong competition to you. You know, I mean, there's another mate of mine actually who's a very good looking guy, and now the issue with him, he was actually quite short. Okay, he was shorter than me, and he was probably maybe he's like 5'7", 5'8", or something like that. Quite short, but very facially good looking, and actually quite very muscular as well. And he did really, really well. He would get a lot of female indicators of interest based on his facial looks, right? And often if we chatted up girls, he would end up winning out. I was taller than him and my game was better, so it was a little bit more evenly matched. You don't, very, very simple tactic is you don't always have to just put yourself in direct competition with these people.
Yeah, so you're saying to try to like go out and find friends with people that are lower SMV than you, so who have both worse looks and worse game than yourself.
That would be that's a rather cynical way of going about it. But I have certainly also been out with people who are less good looking than me and also who have less game, and then I've performed better. So it's a little bit cynical to say, all right, we'll hang out with somebody who's lower down the totem pole than you. But I think you could go out on your own as well. Now, you know, I do a lot of daytime approach on my own, and I've actually done quite a lot of nighttime stuff on my own as well. Now, you could say you're still in competition, right? Because you've still got the other guys in the bar, and you've got the guys in her smartphone who are hitting her up on the dating apps. But I suppose I'm making a very simple point, which is just to say, just because your mate is better looking than you, well, don't hang out with him then, or don't hang out with him to go and meet girls. You know, you don't have to put yourself in direct competition with people like that.
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say. Like, it does sound a bit.
Carry on, sorry.
I was just going to say, like, it does sound a bit cynical, like when I put it in those terms. But I can see what you're the point you're trying to get across. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I don't
I think we
carry on anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say I think we've gone into this topic enough. So, and this could honestly go on for hours.
We've done about an hour and 20 now. So I guess I don't know how much time you've got. Maybe we could do until it's an hour and 30 or something, unless you want to finish sooner than that.
Well, I haven't actually got to leave the house till an hour's time, because that's when I've got work.
We can keep this one going for another.
Yeah.
How much more have you got to go with the main points?
We could try and whiz through them. It'd probably take about another 10-15 minutes.
We could do that, and then we could get to the end of the sort of key points about male looks, and then we can always do another stream or something at some point.
Okay, yeah. So we'll try and speed up through these things, because there's about 25 or 30 of them to go. So the next one, Scleral show. So ideally so this looks quite tired. Like if you have the sclera, which is the portion beneath the pupil, if this is showing, then it doesn't look good.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So next point, this is basic health sort of indicators. So your sclera, which I've just talking about, should ideally be white and healthy in appearance. So it shouldn't appear discolored or red. You don't want this. This is going to be unattractive.
Right. Yeah, I get that. Yeah,
I think this is most of these points, honestly, are just common sense. So we don't even really need to delve into them a huge amount. Most of them are quite important. Eye color. I want to say a bit more about this one, because a lot of people do believe that some eye colors are more attractive than other eye colors. So I often hear people bring up about blue eyes, that they are the most ideal. So what do you think about that?
Only that I read something very similar recently, or I heard it on a Black Pill stream or something. Because I've been going down the rabbit hole with this stuff a little bit recently. I did hear somebody making the case that blue eyes are more attractive, and they. I forget the rationale for that. Do you know what the rationale for that is?
I think it's there is some genetic reasoning behind it. So I heard something about blue eyes are more susceptible to exposure to light, which is ideal in northern hemisphere, where the sun is less bright for less hours of the day, and obviously that's going to appear more Western. But then that's when the cultural sort of aspect comes into it, because people are often exposed to Western faces on social media and in the media more, so they find these features such as blue eyes more attractive because they are more Western looking.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So there could be an element of both genetic and cultural reasoning behind it, but obviously people will have to do more research.
You're rating color fairly low. You're rating it at 2, because I think that's true, because if a guy is, like Tusk has got brown eyes, for example, but I don't think any girl's going to be like, oh, he's got brown eyes, that's a no-go, right? Because he's good looking, so it's relatively minor in the big scheme of things.
Yeah, Alexander Grace made an excellent point in my most recent stream with him. So he said that if you're in the upper tier of looks, then this is where factors such as eye color will come more into play, and this is where subjectivity is going to be more at play. Because let's say that we take a really unattractive man who's sub-5, so he's not ticking 3 or 4 of these boxes. Those things are going to override eye color massively. If you take a man who's missing I don't know, let's say that he's got huge eyes, big height, eye to width. He's got negative Canthal tilt, and he's got lots of upper eyelid exposure. If you take that man and he's got blue eyes, it's not going to make a difference to just your even an average person who just has ordinary brown eyes. He's not going to be competing on any level with that person.
Yes. Yeah.
However, I think that once you're more attractive, then you often hear girls talk about, oh, I like blue eyes, but they're talking about people that have reached a good level of attractiveness anyway.
Yeah, okay, I understand. Yeah, it's that sort of, are you meeting the minimum threshold thing?
Yeah, the minimum threshold. That's a good way of putting it. So that's the thing about eye color. So it might have a little bit of influence, but I don't think it's overwhelmingly that important compared to other factors.
Yeah.
So the next few points are to do with the eyebrows. And this one's quite important. So the eyebrows should be ideally more dark and wholesome, quite thick, rich in color, compared to these eyebrows, which are thin, sparse fibers.
Okay. Yeah. No, I get that.
Yeah, and that's like, goes back to the idea about masculinity and dominance, things like that.
Yeah.
This one's quite important as well. Like I've actually started noticing it a bit more now. So the eye should be a flattened curve or perfectly straight. So they shouldn't be this kind of shape, like N shapes, because that's going to make you look, frightened and vulnerable. Like it's quite feminine.
Yeah, and you're talking about them actually pointing upwards.
That's the next point. So I'll move on to that now.
Right.
So your eyebrow tilt. So you should have ideally either neutral or positive eyebrow tilt. Yeah, so if we take a look at this man, he has negative eyebrow tilt, which is going to convey the similar sort of ideas to negative Canthal tilt, where it makes you look like frightened and worried, sad. It's droopy, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Again, it's that slightly hangdog sort of imprint. It looks a bit like this cartoony kind of like characteristic.
Yeah. So moving on to the next one, the eye to eyebrow distance should ideally be quite narrow, quite tight. So you don't want your eyebrows really far away from your eyes, because it goes back to that same idea about the deer in the headlights sort of thing.
Yeah. Mark Zollo, Naughty Nomad, is here. Good to see you, Mark. He said this stream is making me feel gorgeous, lads. Mark Zollo is actually a very good looking man. So he's probably right about that.
A little bit of gloat. Don't mind.
This is just taking. He's just tick that box. Fine.
Soaking it all in.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's it for the. Oh wait, no, the brow ridge, which I think a commenter brought up earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think it's hugely important now compared to other factors, but it's still desirable. Like it can make you look a bit more masculine because it protects your eyes. But like even then, like you still get like a lot of K-pop stars or like pretty boys, like they don't have a unmasculine. They don't have a prominent brow bridge.
Yeah. This guy here has got a question. Can fancy eyewear compensate for a deficit in this area? I mean, there is this thing about, somebody mentioned sunglasses, and I mean, you could go around wearing sunglasses the whole time, but that's not really going to solve the problem, is it? Because you're going to have to take them off at some point, right?
Yeah, it's the same sort of idea. Like people talk about, oh, if you're bald, just wear a hat. Like, is that really a long-term fix? Like, it might work. It might fool a woman for the first 3 seconds of meeting her, but like it long-term wise, it's not going to be effective, I don't think.
Yeah, I get that, because you can't. You're going to have to take it off eventually. It's just
like who's that YouTuber? Casey Neistat. Have you heard of him? Yeah,
yes.
So he always wears sunglasses because his eye area is like quite below average.
Okay, right.
Yeah, like obviously, like people can debate on the effectiveness of it, but personally, I don't believe it's a good solution. So, anything that you wanted to say on the brow ridge thing?
No, that's fine.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, that's it for the eye area. So there's like, what is that? 16 things.
Yeah.
For the eyes and eyebrows. And now moving on to like the midface and nose. This is like all in between like the eyes and mouth area. This one's quite an important one. And this was like quite sciencey actually as well. So people wouldn't necessarily know about this unless they do the research into it. So there's this thing called the midface ratio, which measures the distance between the eyes and the distance between the eyes and the upper lip. And ideally it should be a 1-to-1 ratio, because otherwise if you have a 1 to 0.8, such as this man here, then like it makes your face appear quite scrunched and like boxed up together, like it's overly compact. Likewise, most people fail in this respect, that their mid-face ratio is too long. So it's one. So in this man, it's 1 to 1.2, and it gives like quite a hoarse face, elongated face appearance.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah, you can see that quite clearly with these pictures.
Yeah. So anything else in that one? might as well move on to the next.
Yeah.
High set cheekbones. This one, I would say, so many men like fail on. This is like a trait that often like only a few male models have. Like a lot of average men don't have this desirable trait. So
So the cheekbones have got to be where? Like
they ideally got to be like closer rather than further away from the eyes. I don't know if there's any like scientific measurements in terms of like facial ratios or like distance in centimeters or anything like that. There might be, but I've not researched it like a huge amount. But like ideally, the just a general rule of thumb is that the cheekbone should be higher rather than lower set.
okay, yeah, I think mine are quite high actually. I think I looking at this stuff, I think I score quite well on some of this stuff, and then I score but less well on some of the other stuff. So maybe that's the case with many people. You know, you're a little bit of, you know, you've got some features that compensate well, and then others that you know pull you down a little bit.
Yeah. So that's that point.
Okay.
Moving on to the next one. This one goes back to like body fat that we was talking about earlier. That a lot of people have these flat, rounded cheeks because of high body fat. So you have to really be quite low body fat, like sub 15%, to have these dovetailing cheekbones, which like converge into your jaw.
Yeah. But you're saying the hollow is not as attractive.
No, I said no. It can be attractive, but I'd say like it's quite subjective as well. So this is again like it's kind of falls into like a niche market. I would say like ideally like more women are going to find this attractive compared to this. However, some women, like a small percentage, are going to go head over heels for this kind of feature. They're going to think like, oh, it's so exotic. Like they're going to go crazy over like hollow cheeks.
Okay, yeah, because I know at least one guy who has that, and he's definitely had a lot of success. So
So you think this is better than this? Would you say?
No, I don't think it's better, but it's just if you hadn't said that and I looked at these three pictures, I would have just said that the hollow guy and the main guy are both good looking, and I'd say that the guy in the middle looks a bit less good looking. Like I wouldn't have said that hollow was significantly worse than the main guy, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. So like obviously this like the main point is that this is the least attractive, and it's mainly to do with body fat percentage a lot of the time.
Cool.
Next point, the maxilla, which is like the mid-face sort of bone. So like it's all of the bone in between your eyes and your mouth. It should be more forwardly grown compared to like these pictures here, which aren't as forward grown.
Right. Okay. How does that really sort of? I can see the red marks, but how do you really see that on somebody's face?
So yeah, I was going to say like the evolutionary reasoning behind it is because having forward grown cheekbones is going to make your eyes appear more deep set. It's going to be like more protection for them. Like while these eyes here, like having a recessed maxilla is going to cause like it's called a negative orbital vector. So your eyes stick out a bit more and they're not as protected. They don't have enough support beneath the eye with the maxilla.
Okay, right. Fine.
Okay, next point. Yeah, so that's all of the features for the mid-face. So now moving on to the features of the nose. So there should be no up or down turning.
Right, yeah.
So like this one is like hooked, and I say it gives like a goblin-like appearance. Meanwhile, this person, I would say this is even worse. So you don't want a lot of nostril show because that an upturned nose, because that will, you know, like it looks like a snout. It's undesirable.
Yeah, I can see that.
Next one. Wait. Yeah. So it's mainly dictated by your like nasolabial angle. So the ideal is like 105 degrees for anyone who wants to know the exact measurement.
Yeah, so get your protractors out, guys, and you can check it up.
They will. Yeah, and I think this is an interesting case. So this person had surgery to reduce the angle to the ideal of 105 degrees.
Right. Okay. God, that's pretty niche surgery to have. But you know, fair point.
Yeah, it's one of the most common surgeries actually.
Is it really? By the way, I would just say, by the way, as Tusk said the other day, I mean, I haven't got any issue at all with people looks maxing. I think that if you, from soft looks maxing to even going to the point of surgery or fillers or something like that. I've got no issue with that at all, really. I think if there are things that you want to fix and you're going to feel better and you're going to look better as a result, then you should absolutely fix them. I can't see any issue with that at all, really. I think as well, I mean, as long as you don't go crazy with it and you don't start to do things which aren't necessary, but that's another topic.
Yeah, if people go too overboard with it, then it can actually look a bit uncanny. Like you look a bit too more like a plastic model, like a figurine, rather than an actual human being, and it actually can be less attractive. And I was just going to make the point that, see, again, like this is where I think that your views slightly differ from the mainstream red pill sort of ideology, and like this particular belief, you're more in line with the black pill sort of thinking that like it is acceptable to get surgery, because a lot of red pill thinkers think that getting surgery to change features in your face is cheating your genetics. Like that's the term they often use, that it's like cheating your way to become more attractive, and that you shouldn't do it.
I just don't really see any issue with that personally. I think that why not use every tool in the box, really? Why not use every tool at your disposal to give yourself the best possible chance that you can get? So I don't personally have a big problem with it, but that's, like I say, like you said, there's a range of different thoughts on this kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. So moving on to the next one, how big your nose is. So like these are all like fairly irrelevant things for the nose. Like it's not a huge sort of thing, so we'll only like breeze past them. But ideally, like the nose should be 3 times taller than it is. Well, no, 1.5 times taller than it is wide.
Okay, right.
But it doesn't really have a huge impact. Like this guy, he would still be considered like an 8 by like definitely young like teenage girls.
Yeah. Cool.
Next one, how big your nose is in comparison to like the size of your face. Again, fairly irrelevant. So like it should just be appropriate size. Like you don't even need to know these measurements to see if somebody's got a big nose. Like it's usually common sense most of the time.
Yeah, definitely.
How straight your nose is. This is quite an interesting one because I said about this earlier. So like a lot of women, it can be massively undesirable if they have this raven-shaped nose where their nose protrudes outwards, and that is actually one of the most common surgeries that women get to try and fix, because this is like hugely masculine and it's undesirable. Hello? Hello? Well, it looks like he's disconnected, so I'm not sure if people can hear me, but I'll try to carry on. If the stream's not going on, then I'll remember this point. And hello?
You are back? Yes, I'm back. I got thrown off the stream for being too ugly, but sorry, carry on.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just finishing that point about the like ideal nose shape. Next one, again, like all fairly irrelevant stuff in terms of actually importance, just like how steep your nose comes down at, so you don't want it like too pointy, and likewise you don't want it too flat. But like we'll go on to the more important stuff. So that's all the stuff for the midface and nose. These things are more important in terms of like your hair and health, sort of things like that. Balding is like a big one. So most people get like hairline recession in the temporal area and at the crown of their head, like on the vertex, and this is like quite significant. And what's your opinion on hair transplants?
I've got a friend who just had one, actually. I don't have a problem with it. I don't know how good they always look, but I don't have any issue with it.
Similar to the rhinoplasty, like both rhinoplasty and hair transplants, they are actually two of the most consistent surgeries out there. They have a very low chance of being bodged up and looking like even making yourself look worse because like they're really like consistent. Like if we just have a look at these results here, they definitely have given bonuses.
Right. Okay. You're saying rhinoplasty doesn't often go wrong then? Is that generally?
Yeah, because the rhinoplasty, like your nose doesn't actually have any bone in it. Like it's actually like an external piece of like cartilage on your face. So it's like usually really consistent because you're not actually interfering with any bone, which oftentimes is a lot more difficult to deal with because you're really just dealing with like pretty much like plastic on the end of your face, which is a lot more easier to mold.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I walked into a bloody lamppost earlier, and it certainly felt like I had bone on in my nose. Okay, yeah. So, because somebody has said here that I've seen a lot of botched nose jobs, which it seems to be true. But I take your word for it that it's perhaps a somewhat easier operation than some of these other ones.
I honestly haven't seen a huge amount of bodged nose jobs. The most common bodged surgeries that come to mind is filler for the cheekbones and filler for the jaw. Like I've seen so many like bodged up examples of those. Yeah, like I think Zac Efron's a good example. Like he definitely had something done to his jawline. I think he got some filler injections like, around this sort of area, and it just looked really bad. Like it was just uncanny. Like he looked like he, you know, it looked really plastic, and it just wasn't good.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. But I mean, the good thing about fillers are they are temporary, aren't they? I mean, they're going to go off after a while, so you can change it.
Yeah. But I'm sure it will leave some sort of like remnants. Yeah. There's going to be always going to be like some sort of permanent mark.
Yeah.
But
are you saying? But just to clarify, are you saying then that baldness in general is not attractive to women?
100%. Yeah.
Really? Because I mean, you do, you know, then you get all these guys. Obviously, you know, there are examples of celebrity guys who are bald, and you know, they have loads of women fancying them, and so on and so forth. But in general, this is an issue for women.
These examples of like men who go bald and have women after them, like you'll often find that they still had women like before they went bald. Like there's still these examples, such as I don't know, like Dwayne the Rock Johnson. He's still attractive despite going bald.
Well, Jason,
in spite of their balding, not because of their balding. They're now not more attractive because they went bald. They were attractive beforehand, and had lots of options. But then they went bald. But because they've had like the right skull proportions and an attractive face, then they've still got options afterwards.
Okay, yeah, I get it.
But like they've done surveys on this, like, and they've asked women like, do you prefer bald or like I think there was 3 options. So a full head of hair, balding, or bald, and most of them went for full head of hair, and then a small percentage said bald look, and then an even smaller percentage of men said like a balding look. So you don't want something like this. Like if you've got hair like this, and I would say that it's better to just shave it all off.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because this is like cope at this point. Next point, hair color.
All right, so that's interesting. So what about grey? Grey's all right?
No, I'll say grey is undesirable because of the age-related effects.
Right. Okay.
Any other things that you wanted to say on this?
Not really. No. Although there is that cliche, isn't there, that the silver fox and it can still look quite good and blah blah blah. But you're saying the reality, maybe that's not entirely true.
The vast majority of the time, it's going to be less attractive for women.
So what about what about dyeing your hair then? Is that acceptable, do you think? Or do you think that, but then that can look a bit like overcompensation if it's done in a very obvious way, can't it?
Yeah, if it looks really obvious and it looks quite bad, then I wouldn't recommend it. But honestly, most of the times I've seen people dye their hair darker after going a bit grey, I've actually seen positive results. I would say as a whole, it usually works quite well.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. One thing that I do want to pick up on, like
but that dude there, sorry, that dude there in the picture on the right above, he looks pretty Chad like, doesn't he? Even though he's got the dude on the right but above.
Oh yeah, here.
I mean, he looks good, doesn't he? Even though he's got grey hair, but he's got obviously very good bone structure and everything as well, right? So
yeah, definitely. But I would still say that he would be more attractive when he was younger. Like a point that I often bring up about is that when you're older, like you can still be attractive, but it's just going to be more awkward and difficult, like to approach. young girls. So like, let's say this guy, if he went up to a young 20-year-old girl, like a lot of people would look at that and think, oh, that's a bit creepy. Like he's too old to try to
Well,
be approaching. Like you might disagree with that, but I would say as a whole, like it's going to be considered more.
I think it's a cultural.
taboo.
I think culturally, it might be a bit better here, for example, in Russia, where there's slightly less of a stigma attached to age differences. I think you're right. Probably in the West, I think it's in London and so on. I think it would be, more tricky. Yeah, the jury's out on that one for me, to be honest. I think it depends where you are. The other thing as well, I've been reading a bit about black pill people talking about the age pill and, when you get older, it gets hard and blah, blah, blah. The only thing that I would say, and this doesn't actually undermine the point, but you do start to care less as you get older, to be honest. I mean, I think that if there's one good thing about getting a bit older, your libido does start to slow down. People say, well, what are you going to do when you're 60? You're still going to be chasing girls around, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, probably not. I'm just going to be reading a book with a cup of hot chocolate, to be honest. I'm not that bothered about it. So there's one compensating factor, the age pill. I suspect some people in the comments aren't going to think that that's adequate, but the ardor cools a little bit after a few years.
Yeah. Last point I wanted to make on this was this one here, because I actually have red hair. Not a lot of people know this who watch my channel.
Exclusive.
Yeah. And I've actually found this to be a huge factor in terms of my attractiveness and perceived value from other women. Like the amount of pretty much my whole dating life to a large extent has been determined by this one thing alone.
Do you think so, really? Seriously?
Yeah, huge amount. Like my first relationship, like I'll show you. I've even got the screenshot of the first message she ever sent to me. Have you ever heard of the dating app Bumble?
Bumble, yeah, I know. Bumble.
Yeah, I was gonna. I'm probably gonna put this in a future video, but the first message she ever sent to me was, "Oh, not gonna lie, I have a huge thing for men with red hair." And
okay.
I'm not gonna lie. As soon as I saw that, I was like, "Right, that's game on. That's game on then."
Yeah.
Something like this is gonna lead to something, definitely. And bearing in mind, I get very, very, very few matches. Like I get at most one per day. Even after soft looks maxing to a large extent. As soon as I saw that message, I was like, "This is right. Something's gonna happen now." Based on my past experiences and other girls that I've had experiences with, they've always explicitly said this thing about the red hair. They've always said they have a preference for it. They have a niche type. They like this. Hello. Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah. So what are you saying? So you're saying some girls just select for it, but they're probably a minority.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Yeah. So do you think? So when you're saying this has really affected your dating life, are you saying that it's because the majority of women are prejudiced against? They don't like guys who are ginger. They don't like ginger hair.
Hugely, yeah. Hugely.
Yeah. I have to say, I mean, I have heard that because they do say it's the last taboo, isn't it? That you can sort of actively discriminate against people who are ginger, in a way that maybe you can't for almost anything else.
Yeah. It's definitely something that I'm going to try to make more known in the black pill community, because I've honestly heard very little about this one particular issue. And one thing, remember you brought up about the story that I told in one of my videos, the black pilling moment. Yeah. So the girl that the other girl in the story, who went for the other guy, one night, I did actually come to ask her. We were very close. We did have the sort of rapport thing. So we could talk about pretty much anything. And one time I did actually ask her, so why? I know that you you were never going to see us more than friends. I was well gone by this point. I knew that we weren't ever going to have something between us. And I was like, why was that? And she told me, oh, it was two things. Number one, because of your hair color, I usually go for men of darker hair. And number two was because of height. I almost exclusively date men over 6 foot.
Right. How tall are you, out of interest?
I'm 5'10".
Okay, right. So that's a decent height, but it's not.
And this girl was 5'7", so it's somewhat understandable. If she's 5'7", she wants to date like men of taller height, but like she said that like personality wise, like if you were like somebody else, if you were better looking, like if you didn't have those two things, then like by all means I would date you. Like that's what I'm going to talk about in a future video. And like that definitely like was a huge like blackpilling eye-opening moment for me.
Okay. I mean, the only thing I would say to that is just one individual girl. I mean, you might. I don't know if it's you. I've certainly seen other black pill people say. Maybe it was you actually. You said that there's a sort of uniformity in terms of what girls think. So if one girl thinks it, then it's likely that a majority of girls are going to.
Yeah, like 90% of the time, like these things that we talk about in the black pill are going to be objective, but you are always going to get some outliers and niche markets that people fall into. So like I do appeal to like a niche market, but it's only ever going to be like a small percentage of girls that have a preference for men with red hair.
Yeah, and actually this is one thing where as XPD 15 says, ginger girls though, this is another thing where girls do get a pass, or not even a pass. This is one thing where girls, because I actually quite like ginger girls, and many guys I think do, with girls with ginger hair, they're actually admired, whereas this is something that men can get penalized for.
Yeah, definitely. Redheaded girls have it way easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Ed Sheeran running a night job is running a black pill channel. Yeah, nice. Cool. Okay, what's the next point?
Yeah, it's gone on quite a bit, so I'll try to get through these next few ones like as quickly as possible. This one's like common sense, so I'm really not going to say much about this. High body fat, you just can't. It's something that you cannot afford. I'd even go as far to say a lot of black pillars are going to disagree with me on this, but I think that body fat percentage carries greater weight than height.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I think you might be right, actually. I think you might be right.
You would say, right, what? Wait, did you say that you agree with that or disagree?
Okay, well, this is going to be controversial as well. I think the jury's out a little bit even on height, to be honest. I mean, and again, I'm going to talk about anecdotal examples, and people are just going to say, well, that's no good because anecdotal, it's, not statistical. But I mean, I've certainly had friends who are pretty short. I mean, I was out teaching a client on a boot camp I did with James Tusk. Short guy, probably about 5'8", maybe even 5'7". He was one of the best students that we took out that weekend. He was a decent looking guy. I wouldn't say like model looks, but decentish looking guy, but quite short. And the effect that he was having on women was through the roof. You could see. So the jury for me, that I get the height thing, but I'm not 100% convinced that it's as big a factor as people say. And also as well,
even then, you said that guy was 5'7". Like you're going to have other guys that are 5'4" and below. Like that's when it really gets significant.
Fine. Okay. Right. Okay. So
like
again,
5'7" and 5'8", it's only like a couple of inches below average height.
Yeah. Okay.
But like just to explain people in the live chat why I think that body fat percentage carries more weight than height is because nearly every single person accepts that face is more important than height in terms of attractiveness. So like it's better to be 5'6" with Tom Cruise tier face rather than 6'3" with like ogre tier face. Like most people are going to agree with that. But the thing with body fat percentage, if you have a high body fat, if you're 30%, then your face is automatically going to be bad. Automatically. So if you're high body fat percentage, and purely based on the fact that face carries more weight than height, if you believe in that principle, then you also believe that body fat percentage carries more weight than height. I'm not sure if he's cut out again. Hello?
God, dear, blimey. They keep trying to take us down.
Oh, did you cut out again?
Yeah, sorry, man. They keep trying to take us down. Carry on.
I'm not sure if you or the live chat heard that point that I just made.
I think they can still hear it. I think they can still hear it. Yeah.
If people watching this can let me know that if he does cut out and you can still hear me, then that'll be ideal because then I know whether to carry on or repeat it or whatever.
I think they can still hear you if I cut out. So just keep going.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that was that point. Like it's common sense. Women aren't going to be attracted to high body fat people. It's simple as that. Next one, again, common sense. Like you can't have like acne or any facial blemishes, scarring. So you need to do your best in terms of skincare to try to rectify that.
Well, Roaccutane is a wonder drug for acne. I mean, it does kill it. It's quite a powerful drug, but it's worth looking into if you've got an issue.
Yeah, that's a good solution. I wasn't actually aware of that. So anybody watching, if they're looking for a solution, if they're struggling with this particular thing, then what was it called again? One more time.
Well, there's different drugs that you can take for acne, from over the counter stuff right to prescription stuff. But the most powerful one is there's a thing called Roaccutane, which is a vitamin A substance, and it's very powerful. It's prescription only. It does kill it. There are certain other side effects, but it's worth doing if you're having a real problem with this.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that. So next one, wrinkles. Again, fairly self-explanatory. It's just basic indicators of like health and youth. You don't really want these.
Yeah.
Next one, eye bags. Again, like all common sense, is youth again. Skin color. So ideally, it should be like slightly dark. So you don't want it to appear too like pale, like because this is going to be like anemic, and you don't want to appear like too orange or anything like this.
Yeah, fair enough.
Skin texture.
It's over for Trump cells. It's over for Trump cells.
Yeah, definitely. This one's quite an interesting one. So this, if your skin is too sensitive, then this is always going to be undesirable. But if it's smooth like this, so a lot of pretty boys like Harry Styles sort kind of guys would have this sort of skin texture. This can be ideal too for a niche market of women, like, you know, again, the like teenagers, younger girls. Yeah, okay. But generally, like this sort of skin texture, so like a little bit of roughness, a little bit of grain to give you a bit of texture is going to be most ideal.
Yeah, okay.
Lips, like you can't have them too thin, like they should be like full, whole, like it's just basic indicators of health. Teeth, common sense again, and there's actually quite a lot of solutions for this. And this is definitely like one of the more consistent and accepted sort of things that you can get surgery or braces for.
Yeah, and teeth whitening now is a pretty common thing, isn't it, for guys?
Yeah. So it's definitely something to consider. How this one's quite a big one. How equal your facial thirds are. So they should ideally be equal all the way down. So you don't want a narrowing lower third, because this is a feminine trait. So most women have a narrowing lower third because it makes them look more feminine. And you'll often see in like when women take selfies, they will take it above at an angle in order to make their lower third appear even smaller and more feminine.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. Again, you know how they they know this intuitively, even if they don't.
But they don't necessarily know the science, but they know that it makes them more attractive.
Yeah.
Next one, like this is kind of linked to the thing that we spoke about earlier, that your face should be roughly 1.5 times longer than it is wide. So you don't want it like a 1-to-1 ratio, because that's gonna, you know, this is like a baby sort of face. Like a lot of people who have baby faces will have this 1-to-1 ratio in terms of height and width. But also you don't want like this tic-tac shaped head where it's your face is 2 times longer than it is wide.
Yes. Okay.
Next one, forehead height to width. So again, it should be 2 times longer than it is tall. So you don't want an oversized forehead.
Yeah, because okay, fine.
It's just like juvenile and weak, babyish. How thick your neck is. This is surprisingly important. A lot of people underestimate this. But like the difference in, you know, these two guys is quite attractive. Like this guy is a Chad, like obviously, but this guy, you know, nothing's been edited to his face, but his neck is significantly smaller in size. And most people would rate him about a 6, I would say. A 6 to like maybe some would say a 7.
Okay. And the thin neck really does play a big role in that.
Yeah, but not a lot of people really think about this particular feature.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. I didn't bloody... Yeah, there we go. How large your face to neurocranium is. So the neurocranium is like the skull portion where your brain is. And you want that to ideally be like of equal size to your like face size, so the splantocranium.
Okay. Yeah.
Because otherwise it's going to appear like alien-like and babyish again.
Yeah, yeah, I see. Yeah, if it pokes out too much in the back, and that is that a sign of intelligence in a sense? I mean, if the brain is large, or is that fallacious
Uh,
to think?
Possibly. I see what you mean. I can see why you understand. Well, would raise that point, but I'd have to do
It's
more research and look at a few, bit of
it's
science.
it's funny when you think of those guys who are sort of like there was literally a term, wasn't there, eggheads for guys who were sort of brainy but kind of nerdy, and I think it's what you're talking about here. You know, the sort of head protrudes,
Yeah.
and it would be regarded as being less aesthetically pleasing. But those guys might be the intelligent, nerdy types.
Yeah. So like, it gives the illusion of having a bigger brain, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Next one. This is kind of tied into the last one. So your occipital bone. So the bone at the back of your head should be straight rather than curved, such as this man's.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, and
cool.
I think we're nearly to the end here. Ear size, literally, I'm going to spend 30 seconds on this tops because it really doesn't matter. So they shouldn't be too small or large for that matter. They shouldn't be like wrinkled or misshapen, anything like that. It should be like consistent, and they shouldn't like protrude out like big elephant Dumbo ears. So they should be like pinned back quite tight.
Right. Okay. Mine stick out too much. That could be something
Yeah.
I can get done after the next boot camp when you can get some more cash in.
Yeah, I think there is quite a lot of surgery available for this as well. So
I think it's a relatively straightforward thing, isn't it? From what I understand.
yeah,
I could be
like
wrong.
again, it's similar to the nose operation, the rhinoplasty, that
Yeah.
you're not actually interfering with any bone. So it's a fairly consistent procedure.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Good stuff. Are we there or
Yeah,
is there...
that's all of them. That's all of them.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, I mean, because we've gone on for longer than I thought that we would, but it's been very comprehensive because we've done about 2 hours worth, or you've done about 2 hours worth, really explaining all this stuff, which has been really, really interesting and really valuable. I mean, maybe we have to do another one where we can get more into the debate about, you know, okay, all this stuff is good, is all well and good, but if you are not this guy in the main picture, is it really over for you, or, you know, to what extent can you
Alleviate those.
You know, whatever flaws you have with your behaviors? I mean, I'll ask you one question. What did you think of what Alexander Grace said? He was saying, in his experience, you had some women who thought he was ugly, and he had other women who thought he was God's gift. And they're like, oh my God, you're so gorgeous, Alexander. I identify with that because I've had both reactions. You know, I've had women who, you know, wouldn't look twice at me. And if I approach, they're like, oh yeah, sod off, you know, you're not good enough. But equally, I've met other women and I've dated other women who have thought I'm very, very attractive, you know, you know, and it doesn't seem to correlate with their sexual market value. You know, I've had very good looking women who thought I'm very good looking, and I've had less good looking women who think I'm just, you know, they wouldn't spit at me in the street, right? So, I mean, what's your view on that sort of experience? Do you think that those are outliers or anomalies, or do you accept that? Because I guess what it's coming towards is to say, well, actually, women do have a little bit of, you know, women do have somewhat different tastes sometimes, and you know. So what's your view on all of that?
Well, I know exactly what you're talking about, and going back to like what I was saying earlier, like I'd probably say that I've experienced this to a greater degree than like anyone that I've seen.
Yeah.
Like I've got the Chad treatment from 2 girls in total ever.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
and I know how that feels. Like I know how that feels to have them message you back instantly every time. Like all you know, like they're simping over you, not the other way around. Like I've experienced that, so I'm like, I know exactly what you mean. But like even still, like 95% of girls, like even the most unattractive women, that you know, like you don't even need to learn all of this stuff to know that you are 10 times better looking than them. Like they wouldn't even blink an eye towards me. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Like as a whole, like they've actually done studies on this. They've asked women how attractive different men are, and the greatest variation of a man's perceived attractiveness is in that middle range. So like if you are in that like 5 to 7 range, then you have a greater variability. But if you're at either end of the spectrum, so if you're a sub 5, then 99 out of 100 women are going to say, yes, you are very unattractive. You have these like hideous flaws that like it's easy to spot. You don't even need to know any science behind it. Likewise, if you're on the other side of the spectrum, if you're a Chad, then 99 out of 100 women are going to identify that you are a superior, genetically superior male, and they find you very attractive. But it's in the like normie sort of range when there is a bit more leeway and subjectivity involved, where like, you know, some women who have a really niche preference for some features, like they will give Chad treatment to like a 6.5 out of 10. Who most so 99% of women are going to say, oh, he's a 6.5, he's average, he's nothing. But then you're going to get a small fraction of women that think, oh, he's gorgeous, such as a case like Alexander Grace.
Yeah, okay. And yeah, no, I agree with that. And
yeah,
I think the important thing is, I mean, actually, the service that you offer is valuable, really, because I think guys have got to be honest with themselves, or they've got to get an honest assessment of their looks, because it's all very well. If it's a terrible waste, if you're like a 5, 6, maybe you said I'm somewhere in that range, or if you're somewhere in the middle, then going full on black pill and just going, right, it's over, I may as well just sit in my bedroom for the rest of my life. And I know you don't advocate that, but going into
I don't at all.
But going to very fatalistic thinking, I think, is a mistake, because there would be opportunities out there for you if you maxed out on certain different things. So I think getting a very frank assessment of your looks and then acting on the basis of that is a good thing to do, because I think if there is a thing called body dysmorphia, isn't there? I mean, people can think that they are worse looking than they are, and if you're sitting there thinking, I'm a 2, I'm never going to get anything, and actually you're a 5, then that's a problem, because you are going to waste a lot of time wallowing when actually you could have been getting some action, getting some results.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I actually had one client who was exactly the thing that you described. That like he came to me like very nihilistic. But it turns out like he was actually reasonably good looking. Like obviously he wasn't a full on Chad, but I think I ended up giving him a 5.5 or a 6 maybe. But like he came into me saying that he thought that he was like a 2 or a 3.
Yeah. So you've got to be careful, or you've got to at least get a very honest assessment, I suppose, of the way that you look, if this is something that concerns you, before you start to give up all hope, right? And then even then, I mean, we can talk maybe next time a bit more in depth about if a guy really does fall into those lower echelons, what does he do then? And I think the argument you've made is that he perhaps just concentrates on other aspects of his life and so on and so forth. I think I would probably concur with what James said, which is I don't think any guy should give up totally on forming some sort of relation with the opposite sex, but that's something that we can maybe discuss further at a later date.
Yeah, like the main point, I know exactly what you're saying. I think I phrased it poorly in the discussion with James Tuss, but like I'll pretty much sum it up as saying like if you are in those really lower echelons of attractiveness, then if you try to pursue women, like you're pretty much banking on a lottery ticket hitting. Like it's like 1 in 1,000 to even more than that of like a chance. But I would say there are other avenues that you could take, such as like there's a few things in the black pill community. One is known as like travel maxing, which is self-explanatory. Or there's this other thing called escort selling. So if you're really unattractive, then instead of trying to get honest relationships from women, you should try to make as much money as possible and then enjoy the benefits of intimacy just by paying for it. Like it's much more consistent. Like obviously it has drawbacks as well. So you're having to pay every time. Like you're not getting a genuine connection from the woman, but you're still enjoying the company of that person in that moment. You're still getting the benefits, like the proven health and mental health benefits of intimacy with women.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I mean, as I say, I think I would probably have to say that even guys who are in those lower echelons, I don't think you should.
Oh, have you cut off?
Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
I'm back in. I'm back in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
cut off.
think of the two things I prefer travel maxing, just because I haven't got any moral objection to escorts or anything, but I just think that the experience when it's paid for, as opposed to, you know, when you meet somebody and you're actually, there's something real there, even somebody from, you know, a different culture or whatever. But listen, thanks ever so much for that. It's been really all this stuff. It's been really fascinating. Obviously, I've kept cutting out, so we should probably bring this to a close now. But did you want to tell the guys where they can find you, and you know what you've got coming up, and everything else?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is under the name Wheat Waffles. They should be able to see the name on the screen anyway. And yeah, mainly based just on YouTube. And I've got a few videos coming up soon, like mainly carrying on with this like black pill sort of topic of lookism. And my next video coming up is who cares about looks more, men or women? So all good points of discussion.
Good stuff. Interesting stuff. All right, man. Well, thanks ever so much. As I say, been fascinating. It's been a great chat. Thanks for spending so much time over here. And yeah, maybe we can do a follow-up at some point where we talk about some of the wider issues with all of this stuff. But
yeah.
But cheers, mate. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks a lot.
We will see you guys again very soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks.